Spring training is finally here, and a lot of questions surrounding the Baltimore Orioles are starting to surface, like their playoff failures the past couple years. Will 2025 finally be the year the Baltimore's get off that playoff hump? Welcome to Orioles Digest. I'm your host, Kam Brice. And like I say in every video, if you're a part of this percentage, let's change it today. Come join Orioles Digest. I'm giving you daily updates about the Baltimore's that you don't want to miss. Now, spring training is finally here for the Baltimore Orioles. Pitchers and catchers reported today. But I want to talk about the lack of success in the postseason over the past couple years and how the Baltimore Orioles can possibly change that this year. Can the Baltimore Orioles finally overcome their playoff failures in 2025? So, when talking about the Baltimore Orioles and the MLB postseason, it's not a good thing at all. They have lost 10 consecutive games in the postseason, dating all the way back to 2014. In 2014, they went up against the Orioles in the ALCS. They got swept, and it was looking like that was the team for the Baltimore Orioles to finally win the championship. Manny Machado, Adam Jones, Matt Wieters, Zach Britton. They had so many guys, and it was like the Baltimore's could finally win the championship in 2014, but they failed. Once again, how they usually do in key pivotal moments. Now, fast forward to 2016, AL wildcard. They lost against the Toronto Blue Jays, and we all know that scenario. Ubaldo Jimenez should have never been put in that game, and that's something that Buck Showalter will live for the rest of his life. Now we fast forward to 2023. After years of being one of the worst teams in baseball history, the Baltimore Orioles finally made a push. With new stars in Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman, they helped them get to the playoffs once again in a very long time. But they fell short when they got swept against the Texas Rangers, who eventually went on to win the World Series. Now, last season was very disappointing. Baltimore looked like one of the best teams in baseball. We saw the injuries fall down as they usually do over the past couple years, and it felt like going into the postseason, the Baltimore Orioles could beat the Royals, they could beat the Tigers, they could beat the Yankees, they could beat any of these teams, but they failed to do that once again. With home field advantage, it was looking like the Baltimores were going to sweep the Royals, but that didn't happen at all. The Baltimores got demolished by the Kansas City Royals. We saw Bobby Witt Jr. look like one of the best players in baseball in the postseason last year. And the Orioles offense came short once again. And their young stars, Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westburg, Grayson Rodriguez, Colton Cowser, and including Jackson Holliday, none of them showed up even though Jackson Holliday didn't get any opportunities in the postseason. So in 2025, can the Baltimore's finally win in the playoffs? I think this is the year for them to win at least a playoff series. I don't expect them to win the World Series. I know everyone has high hopes for this team, but they're not talented enough to win the World Series, to go through teams like the Yankees or the Dodgers. But if they can win a playoff series, this helps the franchise so much in the long run. Now, the key contributions about this is the young guys have to step up. And that's going to get me into my next point. It's time for the superstars of the Baltimore Orioles to show up in the postseason. Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman have yet to show up in the postseason consistently. I know Gunnar Henderson had a .5 average in 2023, but the Baltimore Orioles struggled against the Rangers, and he also struggled with runners in scoring position. Adley Rutschman, the complete opposite. He has not looked like the same guy we've seen in the regular season in the playoffs. 2 for 20 all time, 1 for 8 last season in 2024. So if your franchise stars are not showing up, how can this team win in the postseason? It's time for Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman to step up. I put this photo up because it explains every Orioles fan's reaction over the past couple years and their playoff failures. Just look at the faces of all these guys. They look demoralized. They look like, what happened? We were one of the best teams in the AL, and we lost to a Kansas City Royals team that was fighting their way into the postseason. Remember, the Kansas City Royals weren't even expected to make the postseason last year. They made a huge playoff push at the end of the season, and they got in that wild card spot. And then going up against the Baltimore Orioles, everyone expected, oh, this is going to be an easy sweep for the Orioles. Now, if Gunnar Henderson or Adley Rutschman is not getting on base, how do you expect everyone else in the lineup who is depending on those two stars to lead this team produce? The pitching was great. we're not even going to talk about the pitching because the pitching was better than it looked all last season. In the playoffs, the Orioles pitching has not been that bad. Their bullpen has been very good, but it's the lack of success on the offensive end. Now, I'm not going to put all the pressure on Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman because Westberg, Cowser, Mountcastle, and especially Cedric Mullins, who actually was the only one to step up last postseason. Mullins is an interesting guy because he wasn't thought of an Orioles star. He wasn't thought of that guy who's going to come out, produce, hit home runs, bring in runs, steal bases every single game consistently. But he did that in the postseason, and he was the only light for the Orioles. Now in 2025, it's time for Gunnar Henderson to be a more vocal leader. We want him to take that next big step. A lot of people say he has to hit over 40 home runs. He has to be in the MVP conversation. If he doesn't, that's cool. But if he can be a more vocal leader, be the leader of this team. You are the franchise star. You want to get paid $500 million. Now it's time to act like Juan Soto, act like Aaron Judge. Be that guy in key pivotal moments that your team can depend on. Is Brandon Hyde on the hot seat in 2025? Me personally, I don't think Brandon Hyde should be on the hot seat in 2025. I think he managed games very good in the postseason. He put everyone in key positions to succeed. Remember, Colton Cowser, 1 out, bases loaded. He had the chance. A knock takes the lead. He came up short, swung, got hit by a pitch. It was ruled a strikeout. And the Baltimore Orioles, that was it. It was like their season was gone. The ballpark energy was down. Every single player in that team was like, this might be it. Even though we had strong performances from Corbin Burns, he went out there and pitched 9 innings, no earned runs, well over 12 strikeouts. And the Baltimore Orioles couldn't even give him over 2 hits in that game. So it's like at some point, Brandon Hyde is not the guy to blame. He's not at all. It's time for the players to step up. Brandon Hyde, he can't do much if his young players and the players on his team are not coming through for him when he puts them in moments to succeed. So I don't think Brandon Hyde's on a hot seat. I think he's a good manager. He's a player's manager. He backs his players up consistently. He doesn't put them in bad position. He might have some questionable decisions at time, but that's every MLB manager. Sometimes you go out there, you risk it. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But I think Brandon Hyde is here to stay, at least for the next 2 years. Now, if Brandon Hyde and the Baltimore Orioles show up in the playoffs like they did in 2023 and 2024 once again, then I think it's time you might look in a different direction. If the Orioles show up offensively and Brandon Hyde makes questionable decisions, then you can move on from him. But for right now, I don't think you put him on a hot seat. I think he's done everything you can do in a manager. He had one of the worst talented rosters. He stuck with this team, built up guys like Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westberg, Adley Rutschman, put them in situations to succeed. And he's doing the same thing with Jackson Holliday. So it's like, give Brandon Hyde his flowers because he's a great regular season manager. But in the postseason, it's not his fault at all. That's my last point. The young players and the players of this team have to take that next big jump in the postseason and succeed. Now, pitchers and catchers reported today. How excited are we? I want you guys to give me some predictions in the comments. What you think? Who will hit the most home runs? Who will have the best ERA on the Baltimore Orioles? Just give me anything that you like. Just let me know in the comments and we can have a discussion about it because I think this year will be very special for the Baltimore Orioles. I know there are a lot of questions surrounding the starting rotation, the outfield room. Do we need another trade? Is Jackson Holliday, Colton Cowser, Kobe Mayo, any of them going to have breakout seasons? But I expect the Baltimore Orioles to win over 90 games this year. They will be a very good team. Thank you for joining Orioles Digest. Don't forget, turn on post notifications. We give you daily updates about the Baltimore Orioles that you don't want to miss. Have a great week.